Children are some of the most valuable resources known to mankind. It is a requirement for children to survive to a matured age in order to become functioning members of society. However, children are also quite easy in the world of Genshin to procure, kill, and utilize as effective resources for political and religious purposes. And in this video, I'll be showing the fascinating tales of several beautiful ways in which Genshin Impact shows the deaths, sacrifices, and indoctrinations of children. As a disclaimer, these are just 5 out of potentially more times that Genshin Impact has when it comes to crimes against children. So let's begin. The myth of Wang Hill. There is a fable that is oft repeated amongst the children of Hiji Village. It holds that the young people of Wang Hill, enchanted by the whale-like song of a faraway sea monster, all threw themselves into the gently flowing Baishu River in pursuit of false promises and childlike dreams. Along the river they floated, making their way to the Sea of Clouds, where they became one with the waves and lost all memory of the woods and their village on the hill. Their dreams, meanwhile, became the sea monster's song. Generation after generation of young people disappeared in this way, until in the end, the sole remaining residents of Wang Hill were old and grey. One by one, they left this mortal plane amid signs of grief. The bright lights of Liyue Harbor, Rex Lapis's pride and joy, burned brighter than ever, while another neglected mountain village turned into a silent ghost town. But unlike the fleeting and fickle human mind, the ever-flowing ley lines remember all. Surging elemental energy takes on spirit forms to recreate all the dreams, both fair and foul, of Wang Hill's erstwhile residents. Much like a mother who once lost a child and now searches desperately through their irretrievable past for a way to bring everything back, the ley lines, albeit unconsciously, repeatedly recreate the past and those who inhabited it. It's one thing to have a village full of ghosts, it's another for an entire village to lose their population because their children slowly disappeared. The Torres Funny Farm. If you've ever read the Genshin Impact webtoon, you would know that children bartering was a very popular demand a year ago in Mondstadt. The Fatui leveraged their political power to infiltrate the inner workings of Mondstadt by benevolently asking for young Mondstadter soldiers to quote-unquote be trained in Snezhnaya. Kaya questions why the Fatui need more soldiers if there are plenty of promising people in Snezhnaya, to which Dr. Krupp, the Torres henchman, states that they seek for those who have strong faith in the Seven, not for those who are strong in mind and body. Mondstadt has plenty of faithful youths, who will be trained with the Fatui to become heroes. Kaya mentions that this sounds like a blood tax paid with the lives of our children, and Seamus Pegg further mentions that the Fatui never returned the children, as their families have never seen them again. The reality is that the children were being trained in the underground arena known as Heresies. As far as we are aware, Anthony, the boy featured in the introduction panel, is contender number 139. The Dainichi Mikoshi. The saddest reality of civilization is that no matter how blessed they are, the sins will always catch up with them, and this is a tale of the Dainichi Mikoshi and the Sun Children. After Abrax built the tower with Istaroth's guidance, the entirety of Enkanomiya was finally spared from the clutches of the Dragonaires. However, a cabal of corrupt nobles wanted to capitalize on the mystical nature of the Dainichi Mikoshi and began manipulating people to treat it as though it was a god. To establish their order, they created the puppet rulers of Enkanomiya known as the Sun Children. The Sun Child is the quote-unquote divinely chosen ruler by the Dainichi Mikoshi, thus having divine rule over the land. The nobles corrupted and manipulated the children to commit heinous judgments and authoritarian laws over the people, and the people despised them. However, the reality is that they were simply puppets, but the people didn't care and blamed them instead. There are 7 known Sun Children, but what's more horrifying is what happens when they come of age. The Sun Children were birthed from the Dainichi Mikoshi, and they would again return to the seat of the sun before the mortal world could taint them. The temperature of the Dainichi Mikoshi was such that its light could warm all of Byakuyakoku. They were incinerated before they could have the chance to mature enough to test the nobles. The 7 children are as follows. Here lies Ayo no Mikoto, versed in fortune-telling and sigil signs, but who often predicted falsely, never errant only when reading the span of his own years. Here lies Isumenas no Mikoto. On his free days, he would go boating, consulting his map of the country. Here lies Orpioso no Mikoto, who was skilled in music as a youth, specializing in playing the lyre. His voice was so lovely that even the very earth would be moved. Here lies Piramomon no Mikoto. Oft did he insist that there would be a world beyond our skies, but they were just wild claims. Here lies Rikuro no Mikoto. He once built a small-scale Dainichi Mikoshi. It was 6 feet tall and immensely vivid. Here lies Risutayos no Mikoto, who loved to imitate the craftsmen who molded with clay, creating sculptures of the female officials of the court that were exquisite and lifelike. The lore of sea Ganoderma. Sea Ganoderma is a popular delicacy that's usually used in salads, beverages, and garnishes. However, the lore is much deeper. A plant species that only grows in certain regions and islands of the ocean. Though it looks like a fungus of some sort, it actually comes from a substance secreted by a certain soft-bodied organism. In the folk tales told in a certain land, these mouthless, noseless creatures are the transformed souls of children who died young. As a form of punishment, they must spend endless years absorbing the elements within the sand and sea, using their fragile bodies, piling them up, and forming sea Ganoderma. And once the Ganoderma are fully formed, they shall be harvested. The sacrifices of Hiji Village. If you know the history of Hiji Village, you would be aware that this is the village that was horribly ravaged by the Tatsugami. The chief Washizu tried to remedy the people to the best of his ability, even to the point of slowly descending into madness. He began to have hallucinations about a god he addresses as he or him. As an act of blind zealotry, he began to sacrifice the villagers to the unknown god, one of which was Choji's mother. If you search the village, you'd be able to find something known as the incomplete register. You can see the slow progress of madness push through with each entry. Nameless passerby A. Sacrificed. Gongozaimon, 30 years old. Sacrificed. Yamada, 23 years old. Sacrificed. Senshiro, 4 years old. Returned to oneness. Senshiro's mother, around 25 years old. Returned to oneness. Akiharu, 23 years old. The possessions of the aforementioned people shall be left here as a lure, all the better to provide living sacrifices for his return. Choji's mother, around 32 years old. Missing. He is pleased with her, and thus she must be found. Nameless outlander, seemingly young, about to take the bait. Arlecchino's orphanage. At first, I was willing to give Arlecchino the benefit of the doubt that the orphanage was truly just a place to shelter the people, until I actually did my research and realized how horrifying it is that someone like Arlecchino is even allowed to meddle with indoctrination. The House of the Hearth was founded by Arlecchino and is an orphanage made to shelter orphans from across the continent. They are given a Snezhnayan last name depending on their gender, and despite not being blood-related, Alfonso mentions that they are closer than blood. People who belong to certain ethnicities or had distinct features relating to a foreign land, such as the Yodochka who was in Azuman, would be taught matters concerning this land when she was young. What's scarier though is that there have been certain projects in which orphans are purposefully attempted to be created, such as the case of sabotaging Watatsumi. The teacher has ordered them and several others to enter Watatsumi Island and poison the land, before intentionally exposing their respective identities as a shrine maiden at the Grand Narukami Shrine and soldiers of the Tenryo Commission. This is so there becomes a tension between the commission itself and Watatsumi. However, the teacher mentions that this will also be able to birth a lot of orphans so that they may train in the future. And it's also possible that Linny, Fremine, and Lynette are from that orphanage considering their appearance in the Overture trailer with Arlecchino. That's going to be another part together, because this is where we cut off the video. Thank you so much for chilling with me. Next video is going to be a continuation to this because I actually want to focus on the orphanage and the 3 little siblings. Anyway, bye-bye!